Привітики, зірочки! З вами Міра. Одразу невеличкий дисклеймер. В цьому відео дуже велика кількість буде жартів про пеніси, тому що ми граємо в симулятор пеніса. Сподіваюсь, трахнути як можна більшу кількість інших пенісів і вдягти плащ-пальто, щоб не виїбав ніхто. Ну, мені це сходу подобається. Грати будемо в сторі мод. Ну і розбиратись на ходу, як завжди. Що куди тикати, куди що дивати. Ну, мені вже подобається. В нього ще звук такий близький. О! Він жопою їсить яблуко. І плюється. На це можна вилізти? І ніхто не має нас покохати. Боже, вони виглядають так, ніби я не хочу, щоб вони залізли мені в дупу. Боже, вони на мене залазять. Хуйова
John
атака.
woke to the shrill cry of his alarm clock and lay there, rigid, his usual morning condition. But there was another reason John couldn't get out of bed. It was the weight. A weight that had nothing to do with his muscles or fat or sweaty blankets. John was weighed down by a piece of paper. The invitation to his high school reunion. From across the years, the words he'd heard in the schoolyard were still clear. You're a loser. No one will ever love you.
А що робить?
John needed to shower and wash off the sweaty stink of desperate sadness.
Пісю треба мити. А як? Як мити пісю? О, в нас є мило. І що ми можемо з цим зробити? Треба... А як помитися? Боже, ладно. Прям... Це не може бути дуже приємно. Я б в дупі в себе щоткою не колупалась.
They say cleanliness is next to godliness, but at that moment cleanliness was next to his prostate.
І мило в дупі будеш щіпатися. Боже. Я думала, це буде весело, але мене вже лякає ця гра. Не пхайте мило в дупу, це погана ідея. А ти не хочеш дістати мило з дупи? Якось... Це ж якось можна, мабуть, зробити? Ну, ладно. Він виплюнув. Моя ж такиця. А попу не пече? Це щойно було погано. Тому я кажу, що треба пісяти сидя. Треба вдягтись. А як? Як багато серветочок всяких. І лубрикант. І що мені... Боже, який милий. Це що, це светрик? Ладно. Треба йти і жити наше хуйове життя.
John had 3 months until the reunion to turn his life around. First, he needed to clean up.
Треба поприбиратися. А що це? Хуйові у вас новини якісь? Треба собі його в дупу засунути, чи що? Реально.
The only reason he'd ordered so much takeout was because Delilah, the delivery peen, made
Боже.
John feel butterflies in his testicles.
А про кого потурбуватися треба?
John called it his study, but it was basically for games and porn.
О,
Mostly
дрочилка.
porn.
А можна її якось в себе припаркувати? Та чо можна було прям так на роботу йти? Так, книжки нам не потрібні. Нам треба щось поприбирати. Але як це зробити? В дупу собі засунеш їх, чи що? А викидати? Це дуже погано виглядає, мені здається. Це прям дуже погано. Окей. І що в нас далі?
John suddenly realized the time. Distracted by his new drive to improve his life, he had become late. He needed to hurry, or he'd miss the bus to work. John had left his apartment late, but if he caught the express bus, he might make it to work on time. John didn't really like his job, but it had 2 qualities in its favor. 1, he could pay his rent, and 2, Barbara. Currently John's top candidate for his reunion date. John noticed a moderately attractive peen waiting at the stop. He tried to start a conversation and did not get the reaction he'd hoped for. It was probably because he was a minimum wage peen. She could probably sense it.
А можна? Я хочу залізти йому в дупу. Ладно. Час на автобус.
The office hummed with cold fluorescent lighting. The air was cold and stale, lifeless. How long had John worked here? Long enough to deserve better.
Це Це що, залицяння на роботі? Так не можна.
John was late, but he felt daring. He could sneak into the office through the archives, or he could stroll through the front entrance with enough confidence to bluff his boss. Predictably, he chose the direct route.
А куди нам треба йти?
John was nearly trampled by the morning coffee rush.
Мене постійно лякає, що хтось мене
Everyone
зараз за в
else
дупу
was hard
засадить.
at work, grinding away. John might actually get away with this. The boss. He homed in on John, deluging him with spit and buzzwords. The boss ran out of synonyms for John's failings and gave him an ultimatum. Barbara would definitely not be interested in dating John if he was unemployed. He had to get to the quality assurance department.
Я думаю, що було б мега чудово, якби я ще
There might
розуміла.
be a faulty dildo just waiting to cost the company millions in lawsuits. John would have to test them all. Every atom of John's rectum began to vibrate with the frequencies of pure pleasure. His orifice was a paradise. This vibrator would end all wars. It was good. The Prostate Pounder X900 series, the most advanced vibrator on the market. That one was good too. Sweet mother of no, John, that's too much pleasure for one anus to handle.
Я навіть не знаю, як це коментувати. Але мені здається, це в якомусь сенсі робота мрії. Ну, тестити дрочилки. Він вмер?
John's butt hurt, but his heart was proud. If that vibe had gotten out into the world, it could have injured a customer as badly as it had ravaged his anus.
Будемо лікувати жопу, значить.
The boss arrived and congratulated John on taking one for the team and jumping on the hand grenade, or in this case, putting it up his butt. John was having trouble following the conversation because he was quite high on suppository painkillers. And then the boss said it. Promotion. Finally, the company was recognizing John's hard work and ignoring his minor faults like lack of talent, constant lateness, and flatulence.
Джона шкода.
John's new office smelt like polished wood and success. John's success. Sam dropped by. He'd heard John had been hurt. John said he was fine. He wasn't a softie to complain about a mildly ruptured rectum. Besides, he had a promotion to celebrate. John had met Sam in college during a sports ball game. He'd given him some stiff competition.
Хуйовий в вас футбол. А якщо так от підкрастись, так оп. Не влазиш? Та боже. Джон, щось в тебе яйця великі. Випіхуй цього чувака. Давай заб'ємо гол. І будемо радіти життю. Да. Хуйовому, але яка вже є.
They'd started at Flesh Corp product testing together. Nothing builds a friendship like a long day of dildo mounting. Yes,
Це ж, мабуть, на
John
такій
had known
роботі,
Sam for
ти
a
будеш,
while.
дуже корішами
But John
з...
couldn't hang out with Sam. He had a reunion to prepare for. He was going out with Barbara tonight. He just had to ask her. Everyone was quiet, listening to the presentation. A good moment for John to ask Barbara out. That's not Barbara, John.
Окей. А Барбара це хто? Тоді.
Nope.
Це Барбара. Це Барбара.
John was working his way to Barbara.
Це Барбара.
Barbara agreed. Well, she nodded. Sort of. Things were really going John's way. John tried to act as suave as possible and listen to Barbara talk business. He didn't want to blow his chances at long-term love and short-term sex. Barbara began to talk about monthly feedback figures, and John started to zone out, imagining him and Barbara at the reunion, a power couple.
давай.
She would make his classmates sick with envy.
Я
If he
хотіла
could get her
трахнути
to
Барбару.
tone down the boring chatter. John's balls were gripped by certainty. Barbara was the perfect date for the reunion. John thought he would impress Barbara by going behind the bar and showing the bartender a thing or two. Despite Barbara's protests that it was unnecessary, John knew that a true gentleman should follow her home.
Боже,
He
Барбара,
was
ти куди?
excited. There was still 3 months until the reunion, and he'd already landed his perfect date. All he had to do was seal the deal.
Барбара, почекай. Кицюню. А може...
Barbara thanked John for the evening and politely did not invite him inside for coffee or sex, even though John had dropped some pretty obvious hints he'd be into both, or just the sex. The door slammed on John's hopes. He didn't understand. He'd laughed at all Barbara's pie chart jokes. He'd listened to her boring stories. The blank eyes of the lawn flamingos were witnesses to John's shame.
Так, а що з фламінгами? Що треба зробити з фламінгами? Навчіть Міру англійській мові, будь ласка. А якщо далі пройтись? Ні?
John began the lonely walk home, thoughts tumbling like shoes in a dryer. He had done everything wrong. Barbara had led him on just to humiliate him.
Ну, повзеш? Чи не хочеш? Туди більше не можна повзти. Шкода. А туди? Виходить, мабуть, теж ні. Боже, мені так
John
шкода
felt
Джона.
empty. How could he get love? He felt like he was missing something, some key to attracting sex.
А собаки
But John was
нормальні.
shooting blanks. What did Peens want? Then it
В цьому
hit John
світі
out of
тільки
nowhere.
собаки не хуйові.
Stuff. He had the success. He just needed to show it off. But where was John going to get all the stuff he wanted? John needed a sign. A new day, a new John. He waited outside his local buttload store for it to open, eager to spend his promotion bonus on stuff. The best way to impress women. There's nothing like a rectum full of money to make a peen feel like a man.
Мені так шкода Джона. Типу, він і сам член, і в хуйовому світі живе. Ще й життя таке, що, ну, хуйове. Я не знаю, як він це вивозить.
Suddenly it occurred to John that he was going to make a lot of choices. And every one of those choices would tell the world who he was. Did he want cheese or sausage?
Я за сосиски. Я завжди за сосиски.
Delicious. Mmm.
Боже,
Just so Moorish.
це виглядає так, ніби це
Maybe
гівно назад влазить, а
one
не
more.
сосиски їсть.
That's enough, John thought.
Хоча я можу і сир з'їсти.
Also delicious.
Що мені забороняє?
How could John decide?
Якщо життя вже таке хуйове, то
wasn't.
треба брати від нього все.
How did these tasty snacks make John feel loved? John swallowed the last of the snacks and his self-respect. What would a date think when they sat in John's home? Comfort or style? John went with comfort. Plus, it matched the couch he already had. John weighed up all the differences, but this was a tough choice. John chose the extremely, obviously bad TV. John realized that it was only 2 months and 29 days until the reunion. Time flies. Cactus or rose? Was John a rugged hero or a romantic poet? If John grew his own flowers, then he'd save on romantic gestures in the long run.
А хто вмирати зібрався? Ні, ну там сосиски були зрозумілі, телек, в принципі, диван теж. Але хто збирався... Раз, два, три. Збирався вмирати?
There was nothing John could take with him to the grave.
Давай цю. Я крім кольору подушечки не бачу ніякої різниці.
Except his coffin.
Але
John
якщо
liked to
життя
get
вже
his
хуйове,
pizza delivered. That way he could see Delilah, the delivery peen. She always made him smile. John knew that Delilah thought pineapple on pizza was an abomination. What bedding would Delilah prefer? John couldn't help
піца,
wondering.
це класно.
Pizza sheets
Але
would
піца
show
з
her that
ананасами
John could
це не
also
гуд.
deliver in bed.
Ой, клас.
Devoid of any sense of style, buying new clothes would be John's toughest challenge. John felt sharp and also like a phony. Very spunk rock.
О, мені подобається. Давай. Бери. Ідем
John
платіть за
decided
outfit.
to go with the outfit. Music, the food of love. Should John go retro sophisticated or just retro?
Я за колоночки, щоб всі сусіди бачили і чули, що в
John's
тебе
personal
тусовка.
nostalgia was more important than sound quality. Every can was made of metal, pulled from the bones of the earth, wrestled to the surface and smelted in roaring furnaces. All so John could buy peas preserved in salty water and stick them up his butt. John's new purchases were on the way to his apartment. All he had to do was invite a date over. One look at all his stuff, and they'd be overwhelmed with sexual desire. John felt proud. And also hungry. It gave him an idea. He should invite Delilah over for dinner.
Так, давай запросимо Лайлу.
John was excited. Delilah was on her way. He just needed to set the mood to romance. Classy.
Боже, а як підпалити ці свічки? Мені треба якось свічки підпалити. Впала? Ну нічого. Давай, бери сірничок. Береш сірничок? А якщо жопкою? Давай жопкою спробуємо. Тобі ж подобається всяке в жопу совать. Я б не підпалювала всіляке своєю дупою. Це може бути небезпечно. Я думала, музика теж буде хуйова. І що з трояндами? Окей. Так а де троянди? Я не можу троянди знайти. Ось вони.
John hoped she didn't have allergies. That must be Delilah at the door. The door opened and there was Delilah. John gulped
яка
down
вона
his
гарна.
nerves and invited her in. John could tell that Delilah was impressed by his stuff. It was time to crank up the mood to seduction. John wanted to offer Delilah wine, but he'd already popped his cork. Delilah started looking as nervous as John felt. He assumed it was because she was shy too. They really were compatible. Of course, at the reunion, he couldn't mention Delilah was a delivery peen. That would be embarrassing. Delilah suddenly headed for the door. And just like that, John was alone again. Delilah hadn't even looked at his stuff. Not even the pizza bedspread.
Бідолага Джон. Нічого не може зробити нормально
John
сам.
felt insignificant. He had everything he wanted. The job, the money, the stuff. So much stuff. He wanted to destroy all of it. Shove it into the abyss.
Die, couch, your dead technology tapes.
His stuff didn't matter. He was a shaft in the machine.
Take that, TV.
A lonely piston pumping away like all the others in his rigid place. Nothing special about him.
Показати
Why should
матеріальному
Delilah or
світу,
Barbara
хто тут
or any other
бос.
peen be interested in dating
Давай.
him? He was
Давай
just
ми
like
це
everyone
зробимо.
else and they could tell. John wanted to be special, but he had to face the numb truth.
Я думала, це буде смішно, серйозно, але тут
And
така
all the money
трагедія.
and stuff he'd ever accumulate wouldn't change that.
Fuck off, inanimate objects.
He thought it would make him unique, but it just made him more like everyone else. He should leave it all. Get out of this little town and go on an adventure. See the world.
Begone, boxes.
He was a boring corporate drone, but he didn't have to be. He could be a traveler, exploring jungles and climbing mountains. He could visit the wonders of the world and get his picture taken. Like Peony Island, the unspoiled paradise he'd seen on TV. That was it. John had to travel.
Я
Bags
теж
packed,
вирішила.
John was ready to put 5,000
треба-
miles between him and his problems.
Все його.
He was leaving it all behind.
Ну, бери паспорт. Давай. Ну от. Поїхали.
John was so close. He could almost smell the freedom of the skies.
А цього
Security
разу
sent
що
John
не
back
так?
through the detector.
Empty pockets. А що робити? Ой. Поможіть. А так вийти в... Ні. Вернемось.
John had forgotten he had his nail clippers with him. He'd have to buy another pair soon, or he'd look
Він хотів
ridiculous.
пронести в жопі щипчики? Wait, what?
When the acceleration of takeoff had slackened,
Дисклеймером
John
до
felt
цієї
a
гри мало бути, що
He had
не
left his
пхайте
worries
всілякі
on the
речі
runway.
собі в
He
анус.
was up in the clouds, on his way to
Справді
adventure.
небезпечно.
John's adventure had begun at last, and clearly it was a small world after all, and also a flat one. That was going to piss off the globeheads.
Мені... А що мені треба робити? Подивитися на всякі чудеса? О, божечки. Гука, це обстань. Окей. Прям всосав. Матір Божа. Ну. Що ми будемо в себе совати всяке? Ні, панту, мабуть, не надо. Давай, дубкою. Оп. Ну. Хуйовий у вас тур, якщо чесно. Ну, а що ще? Тут треба всі 4, типу, чи як? Чи куди, чи що? Треба всяке собі в дупу сивати, Джон. Єдина радість в житті, мабуть. Так а що? Ну, до цього в мене получалось. А зараз чогось не виходить. Ну, типу, штуки всякі совать собі в жепу. Уйові у вас пташки, конечно.
John was having fun, but something told him he needed to go home. Probably his empty bank account. John was on his way back home. He was out of money, but money can't buy love. What it can buy are the experiences that had made John a more interesting and developed person, with 100 Buttstagram photos to prove it. Finally, everything was going smoothly.
Наскільки
John
вистачило
felt
моїх
good to be
знань
back on the
англійської, вона
familiar ground
сказала,
of
що
home, but he would feel better to be
за
on the
гроші
familiar
кохання не
mattress of
купиш,
home.
але можна купити досвід. І тепер в його інстаграмі дуже багато доказів того, що він цікавий.
That's not John's bag.
Оце. І поїдемо додому сюди. Оп, а куди нам? Туди ж. Поїхали додому.
Despite John's swell of fresh optimism, traveling was exhausting, and he just really wanted to get home and get some sleep.
Не бійся, Джон. Приїдеш додому, проспишся. Все буде чики-пуки. Що, ми їдемо? Чи як? Я через бляха цей автобус ні чорта не бачу. О! Це ж любовне посилання. І квіти. Матір Божа, яка хуйова романтика. Ніхто мене не покохає, да мать його в тенці.
Another nightmare. John's stress about getting a date for the reunion was making him think of her. Harmony. He hadn't seen her in years. Would she be at the reunion? John shook off the thought. He wasn't a child. He was a fully grown penis.
І що тепер?
John's butt started to buzz. Had he left a vibrator up there? Whatever it was, he should get it out.
Троянда завяла. Боже, як сумно.
John's old phone. They really were indestructible. It was Sam calling.
Боже, а як воно плюється через екран? Я реально...
He wanted to check in on John.
Я
The
думала,
travel
що тут
looked
буде
fun,
з чого
but it was
поїхати,
so
але
sudden.
так сумно.
Was John okay? Sam was such a softie, always worrying about feelings. John had only one feeling, and it was the feeling of being awesome. He could drop Sam a text, but John was on a mission. The reunion was getting closer, and he had to get a date. Fortunately, John knew exactly where to find love. John held his breath.
За
He was about to
трояндами.
meet his match. He had to reassure
Підемо до
himself he could
свого
do this.
кохання.
He had a good job. He had nice stuff. He had traveled. He was ready to find love.
От нащо ще женитись?
On Weena, where all his sexy travel photos would give him the pick of the pack. Hot. Too skinny.
Шира, який
Сексі.
любить картоплю. Карло, так я хочу
Very
вечерінку.
nice. Nice shaft. Too short. Very hot. Too much foreskin.
Gorgeous. Worth a shot?
Насправді, я десь так зазвичай і представляю посиденьки на Баду, Тіндерах і так далі. Тому що ти відкриваєш цей додаток, а там просто хуї одні. Meet and greet. Щоб я ще знала, що це таке. Тереза шукає
Yep,
кохання.
the pick of the pack.
Міка.
Yes! John had the pick of the pack.
Нарешті. Аманда, 22 роки.
John valued honesty in a date, but he had been expecting a different kind of
Непогано.
dirty. A sexy and much more hygienic kind.
Це ж дохла собака в холодильнику. Матір Боже.
John thought that getting
Снігова
circumcised
королева
once was
шукає.
enough.
Шукає кохання. Матір Боже. А як кататися?
Oh,
Оу.
better put that on ice. It'll be okay, John. Chick sticks cars. I hope.
Джона порізали.
After the
На вечерю
reattachment
сосиски.
surgery, the doctors had told John to rest. So he did, for 6 hours.
Салаталі. Бідосю. О, смачного.
Ugh, salty.
Не сподобався.
The date was off to a great start. Don't offer her popcorn, John.
Це безнадьога просто. З букетиком. Хватай букетик. Милий мій. Все, взяв, пішли. Куди йдемо? А куди йти? Не туди. А, ось сюди.
Karen had invited John straight over. She was not fooling around. Very exciting. And now she wanted him round the back. Karen let John know that the cake was only for the kids. So was the candy
Пісюнчики.
and the piñata. And that she'd be back in 1 hour.
Це ж пісюнчики. І хуйовий червячок. І хуйові пташки. Боже, а що з дітьми-то зробити треба? Що вони не мають зробити? Не розумію. Ага. Треба було просто поговорити. Мелоді, 24 роки. Любить пляжі. Віданка на пляжі. Боже. Який
John laughed
романтик.
at Melody's hilarious bullfrog story. She was adorable. Everything was
Але
going
якщо
perfectly.
займатись коханням на пляжі, то в попу попаде пісочок. Буде неприємно. Що робити? Боже, аж здуває.
John never saw Melody again.
Жаль. Шарона, 41.
So far, Weena had been a parade of weirdos and rejections. If this
Мала б
date
бути
didn't work
альфою.
out, John vowed to give it up. But
Собачниця.
maybe this time, maybe today would be his day.
Я дуже сподіваюся, що колись це
Sharona sighed
буде
and said, "You'll do."
день. його, бо це так все сумно, що я не знаю навіть, що казати. Серйозно, це мало бути весело.
John felt a little underdressed and a lot overwhelmed. He was surrounded by strangers, and Sharona was glaring at the muscular groom. At least John hadn't missed out on the cake. John realized that Sharona had only brought him to
Боже,
create some penis
там
envy.
така огромна
Terrible
дірка у
plan.
цієї
So
тьолочки.
many reasons.
Така
John got
огромна, я не
excited.
можу.
They were going to cut the cake. He's mine! Sharona screamed as she launched herself at the newlyweds.
Жених пішов в рознос.
Suddenly, penises were up and yelling, "No, he's mine!" It was a no-holds-barred cockfight.
Ого, уйова поножовщина. Давай, надо уматывать, дорогуша.
As John dodged flying glasses and cake, he
Дуже
felt a
швидко
stab of
уматывать.
envy. The groom had dozens of penises after him, and John had none. It was just wrong.
Умахуєм. Умахуєм, давай, мій хороший. Умахуєм. Хуйова поножовщина на свадьбі – це хуйово. Це трагічно. Це так, бляха, трагічно.
John left the screams and explosions behind him. It was a disastrous end to his online dating. He had tried everything, and it just wasn't good enough. Swans were so simple. If you gave them bread, they liked you. But you can't take a swan to a reunion.
На жаль. Було б так класно, якби це було так просто.
John wanted what that groom had.
Покормив
Love.
хлібушком.
Real
всё.
love. The kind that
І
makes
поїбало
penises
дали.
fight to the death.
Поїхали додому. А що ще треба собі в жопу сунуть? Може цього?
Days later, the question was still bugging John. Why were so many penises in love with the groom, but no one loved John?
It wasn't fair. John deserved attention. He had money and Buttstagram pics of his adventures. He even still had quite a lot of stuff. What did that penis have that John didn't?
Блях. Треба взяти тарілку, типу, чи як, чи що? Ну диви. Ніби взяла. Ні, не взяла. Взяла. Боже, і ця розбилась. Що тут? Важко жить, коли ти член. Це вбило. Члени качки.
Then it hit John. That penis was so strong and hard. That's what everyone wanted. That's what John wasn't. That's what John had to be to find love. It was time to hit the gym.
John
А в
arrived
нас
at his local
починається новий
gym.
день.
A part of him couldn't believe he was here. He just
It's,
wasn't gym penis. But John had tried everything
черговий
else.
день,
If he wanted to get
коли
the
Джон
perfect
буде
date,
існувати.
he'd need to sign up.
От, а я вам хочу сказати, що поки ми зробимо паузу, не сумуйте та не будьте пісями. Дуже вас люблю. Ще побачимось.